Well, hello there. My name is Catherine Fiore, and I am joined by Jed Hamill, and we are members of the Video Garage team. So, Jed, what are we talking about today?
Oh my gosh, we're talking about so much. We're going to talk about how to collaborate with a production company and what you need to bring to the table and what we'll bring to the table. But I'm kind of distracted because there's two things that are kind of in my mind. One is that, I was thinking of the name of our podcast, and I was either going to go with like Sci-Fi and Jetty. I wasn't sure, like that doesn't seem to ring as much as I wanted it to, but we were throwing an idea around, and I feel like, is this art? I feel like that's the one that we landed on.
So, there's some context that needs to happen in order to really understand the name of Is This Art?
Yeah, so share.
And so this goes back to pretty much last year. Roger and I were working on a music video, and we were editing later in the evening. It was late. We were tired, and we were watching just the screen render. And I leaned back and I go, Roger, is this art? Like one of those moments of, what are we doing? I'm rotating this 3D cube in a space, and I'm trying to add particles and move the camera in a virtual environment. I was like,
we've all been there.
Is this art?
Yeah.
And since that day, it has often come back up. Of sometimes you're working on a project and you just step away from it, and you're just like, is this art?
Yeah, I feel like in a lot of ways we're all just a rotating cube in the motion graphic of life.
I definitely want to have like a nice spotlight.
Yeah, I talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
So yes, is this art? Good question. So the other thing I was thinking about was I've just been listening to some old '90s songs, and one of them is from a song from Blink-182, and one of the lines is "No one likes you when you're 23," and I remember that 23 is one of your favorite numbers, and
Yeah.
so I don't know. Does that?
It's also 2023.
Yeah.
And then it also ties in because at the Video Garage, we have a new promo, 23 and 23.
What a coincidence.
Oh my gosh, it's almost like we planned that. What?
It's amazing. Tell me about it.
Oh, I will. So, 23 and 23 is our new promotion that we are kicking off with the new year, where essentially any project that you book with us between now and March 31st, you'll get 23% off. And so this could be the production day, or if you have an event that is in May in the future, no worries, because if you book it with us now between March 31st, that discount will still apply.
Yeah, that is really cool. I think a lot of companies, in fact, probably have that dynamic set up where they know they have needs in the future, but haven't really considered it yet. And just, having a discount is a nice little way to, I guess, save money. I guess it's the
Oh yeah,
essence of it
absolutely.
is to
And
save money.
I have our creative director Andrea in our ear, just
Yeah.
being like, you can always do more pre-production. You can always do more planning.
Right, that's right.
So absolutely, if you're interested, you can book a discovery call with us and fill out a form on our website and find more information there.
Yeah, and it actually, honestly, like it really does kind of dovetail to the topic of the day, which is like, there's the kind of the broad theme is like, we want to share some tips for collaborating with a production company.
Yeah.
And I think kind of where to start with that is just to say that, like, again, in our last episode, we talked about like how there's not exactly like a playbook or a roadmap of how to do this. It's like, do you hire a production team and they show up on Tuesday and shoot, or like, do we have to like have like a meditation session, or like how does it all work? And so I'd love to just kind of go through, kind of the process and best practices that we have, so that folks can get a sense of just how we do things and how to prepare, like whether it's us or someone else, like what should you bring to the table? How do you collaborate with a production?
Yeah, because so often, one of the first things that we'll hear is just like, I have no idea. I don't know. I'm entrusting this to you. And sometimes we do work with other production companies or other in-house teams that they know exactly what they want and they can ask for it and we'll be there for them. But more often than not, it's just like, I don't really know. Where do we start? What does this look like? This is all new to me.
Yeah.
And it, like you were saying, it's truly a process. It's kind of like this partnership. We're going to be working together on this long-term project to create something really fun and exciting.
Yeah, and I think the other piece to that you kind of brought up was whether or not you have some companies, like you said, have a very clear idea of what they want, but even then they might not know exactly the kind of the universal best practice, but they also may not know our best practice or the way that we do things with Video Garage. There are some folks who don't have a very clear idea of what they want, but they don't need something. But generally speaking, they have some idea of what they want.
Yeah, yeah. And it's somehow about like communicating that vision and like continuing to work at this like shared idea until you're both looking at it being like, yeah, okay, I know what that looks like and we know how to do it. Let's go do it.
Yeah, and I think the other piece we want to kind of set the table for and talk about a little bit is that, whether it's like a overview video of your company, or a culture video talking about what it's like to work there, or a product video, or a live stream, or events, like on and on and on. Like, there are different challenges, there are different needs, there are different, positives, ups and downs, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
each time. And I guess that's the thing that I really do like about what we do here at the Video Garage, is that um, we are able to be pretty nimble, and
Yeah.
to do a bunch of different kinds of productions, which have different needs and different expectations and different requirements, and the different end goal. And that's kind of that's what I start at the beginning, I start at the end. Like, well, what is your end goal? What are you trying to achieve with this project? Like, what are the metrics? What are the positives? What are you looking for out of this video? And at the end of the day, though, whether it's an event video or product video or culture video, it's all just storytelling, right? It's all different kinds of storytelling, but storytelling none the same. And there are some pretty universal ways to go about, again, like you said, doing the pre-production and creative, but basically bringing someone's vision to life. So
Mm.
I guess I was just wondering if you had any kind of, just setting the table, of like thoughts about that.
Yeah, and I mean, I kind of want to loop it back to also like the first question that you started with is like, yeah, what do you expect through this whole process? Because you have these so many different types of content that you can create. Once when you say, okay, I think this is what I want, what follows that? And really, what it is once when you have this like general idea of, okay, let's just take a live stream for example. We know the steps that we need to take, or the things we need to figure out before we go live for that live stream, and we get to have those conversations with the client, and talk about it's communication. I can't like emphasize it enough. Like, communication is
And
just such
collaboration.
communication and
I
collaboration.
feel like that's also like our '90s podcast, of podcast from the '90s. It's like communication, collaboration.
Can I be collaboration?
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, so I really can't emphasize it enough, like that it's trusting in this process. So we're going to ask you questions about who's going to be on camera. It's going to be figuring out the run of show. It's going to be determining what the best angles might be on our end. It's going to be figuring out who's directing it, who's going to be technical support, who's going to be like the hair and makeup. We'll take care of those technical pieces, but really it's just this continued conversation about what is this day going to look like,
Or days.
absolutely. What are these days going to look like, so that basically our crew and your team is equipped with as much knowledge as possible, that you can then like show up on the day and be like, yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah, we also have to teach everyone the dance steps,
Yes.
because we start every day and end every day with a choreographed dance move.
We don't actually do that, but one thing that we do is family circle time.
Yes. Well, I know you're like, you don't actually do that yet.
Well, I don't want anyone to get nervous. It's just like, if you are on a Video Garage set, you have to know how to break dance.
Exactly.
I don't want everyone.
Circa 1980. I will say that it is I've been on a number of shoots, like kind of in Los Angeles and throughout the years, in Boston and all over the place, I guess is what I'd say. So I've been on shoots all over the place, whether it's an indie shoot, a TV shoot, or a commercial shoot with a big company. There is kind of like a gathering together of the circle of everybody.
Yeah.
But I think that we do some things that are pretty similar to that. But I'm just wondering, from your perspective, what do we do that's either that works well or is unique from your perspective?
Mm.
Like, well, just explain to me what you do during the circle time.
What we do during all right. So I think a good way to represent this is what we kind of go over in the circle time. So when we're on set for a new project, or even it can be the second day or third day, we like to kind of get everyone, all in a circle and just kind of take a moment to be human. And the first thing that we do is we'll just say, hi, how's everyone doing? What's going on? Thanks for joining us here today. But then we'll go around and we'll have everyone introduce themselves, what team they're a part of, if that's relevant, and also just kind of what they're bringing to the table. Because that is one element about when you are on set. Each person has like this different piece or task or knowledge about the project that is going to kind of build into this puzzle. We've made puzzles analogies a lot on this podcast before, but it really is accurate, because each person will kind of bring their own piece, and the element that has that all then go smoothly is communicating between each of the teams.
Communication, that's me.
Yeah, that's you. So I can segue it back to you if you want to add anything to
No,
that.
I just wanted to say communication.
Would you add anything else? Like, because you also do circle times. What's
Yeah.
your big piece?
Well, I mean, I think there's it's a good metaphor for what we're talking about, which is the purpose of the morning circle is if we were to kind of start, if we didn't have it, what ends up happening usually on a lot of shoots is that everyone kind of in their mind knows their roles but don't know how things connect. And so they just do their job. And so when it comes down to, it's impossible to kind of sit in a corner and work on a shoot. Like even if you're, have a very insular role, like there's just a lot of collaboration that happens.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea is that like if as things get trickier or just let's put it this way, is that as things get evolve throughout the day, like it's just better if you understand who you're talking to. Like you have some human level of like, oh yeah, like you're the one who liked the candy or like love that song. I love that song too. It's just easier to communicate because you have a baseline of understanding what their role is, what they bring to the table, like who they are as a person. And so I think that that's a pretty good metaphor or model for kind of the whole point that we're trying to make here, which is that that if you want to solve problems down the line, an easy way, a really simple way is to take a few minutes just to get everyone together so that everyone has understanding of who they are, how everyone relates as humans, as their role as a professional, and kind of have a full understanding of all the different pieces, like you said, the puzzle. And I think that's incredibly important because I think that um, you know, production is very much an art and very much a science, but it's it's not like it's plugging in like data sets. It's things change, right? Things
Yeah.
go up and down. So the more that you can communicate early, it generally speaking heads problems off later on down the line. And another thing we didn't really mention, but I think is important, is that we also kind of want to make sure that we set the tone that in a working professional environment that of what expectations are of like make sure people are healthy, happy, and heard,
Mm-hmm.
and making sure that everyone understands that the way that we treat each other when things are either going fast or going, or unexpected ways, or just in general, just how we treat each other, how we respond, how we communicate, and not just that we communicate, but that the expectation is that we're all in this together and we're in an environment of respect and support and understanding. And while that may seem, I don't know, some people may not like that just because they prefer it just to be, I do my job, you do yours, boppity boopity. That's you generally speaking not how things play out in my mind. And if you just take a little bit of time to make sure that folks are told that expectation and you're given the freedom to kind of express themselves in a polite and a sort of like professional manner,
Mm.
then it just makes the process smoother. It makes it more fun, and it means that that everyone gets to finish their day likely more on time, with a smile on their face. You take the time to explain to everybody what the expectations are and to get to know each other on at a basic human level, that at the end of the day, you have a happier team, you have a happier client, you have a better video. So like to me, it's like, why not take 5 minutes or even less than that, just to make sure that you communicate those basic tenets of what expectations are and how things are going to go throughout the day. And again, well, the bottom line is that that's an allegory for whether it's on set or as the project's starting or as the project's ending, is the idea that we're going to set the tone early so that problems can be solved in advance before they even come up.
So with that, I'd love to actually kind of shift to our block B a little bit, where we're going to kind of open up the conversation to some of these bigger questions about how we consume or create media and what this looks like. And then hopefully by the end, we're going to be able to pull it back in focus, to kind of a view that it looks right. It's like, yeah, that's what it feels like. So today, we were talking about collaboration between the client and the production team, and a big part of that is communication. So as we're kind of going through this creative process, communication is a big key to it. It's trying to share your vision either through written word or spoken word, or inspiration to convey that and try and get a final product that everyone's happy of. And it's hard. It's not easy. So in your opinion, in the creative process, how can communication kind of like make or break a project?
Yeah, that's a.
It's that. I mean, I don't want to sound so
Yeah,
big.
no, I think that's. I mean, that's a good question. I think that that it answers its own question in a certain way. It's that like communication does make or break a project, and I think that the first step is to meet the person. Let's put it this way: as a production team, the trick is to meet your client where they are. So whatever idea that they have in their head, it requires you to have the wherewithal, patience, and interest in learning, like really teasing out what it is that they're, because again, we talked about this before, is that a lot of folks know exactly what they want and may know exactly how to get it. A lot of folks know exactly what they want and have no idea how to get it. And some people may have a general feeling of what they want, but can't really, describe it, right?
Hmm.
So what it requires is for you to, to listen, to ask the questions that will lead the people, the person you're talking to be able to take what's ever in their head or what's on their plan and translate that into actionable steps from a production perspective and timing and logistics perspectives. Because, and then the second part to that I think is really important, is to really talk through what is it that you really want from this video? What are your goals? Like, what is the thing that you're trying to achieve in the end? Because what happens, a lot of people they have an idea. I do it all the time. It's like, this is my idea for this thing. And then in practice, it's not really what I had in my head. Even if you get it exactly right, it doesn't do the thing that you thought it would do. And so part of that is to have the patience to really kind of understand that it is a process, that like you have to ask questions and to listen to what the answers are, and then make sure that you repeat back to the person you're talking to, like, is this what you had in mind?
Hmm.
And from there, it's like, okay, well, if you want this, then these are because we're professionals, we know how to get that thing. Like, this is what has to happen to have that thing happen.
Sometimes it takes a couple of tries, or at least for me personally, it takes me a couple of tries to like keep trying to explain like the vision in my head or how I interpreted it. And then we always kind of have this eyeballs moment of like, okay, do we have eyeballs? Like, do we see each other on this? Are we on the same page? And it's okay if you can keep being like, yeah, no, I don't get it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think that you have to create an environment where it's okay to not understand or not be on the same page.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that is huge. Because otherwise, if you're in an environment where you might not feel comfortable doing that, you're like, oh, yep, got it. And then you go run 10 miles in one direction and you realize it was the wrong.
Yeah. And so I guess I would start with there. So like if someone says to me like, oh, I like to go hiking, right? All right. So to me, it's like some people are like, I like to go in the woods where it's not too jagged or it's just rolling hills. Other people are like, I like to be in the sun going straight up,
Mm-hmm.
running as fast as I can. Other people are like, I need like a pickaxe and those like crampon shoes or whatever they are, and like
You
what?
will be
Yeah,
scaling Mount
yeah.
Everest.
What do you mean by hiking? That it's just you have to be specific and you need to be patient and you need to be patient enough to get specific. So again, it's like, oh, you want a hiking video? Oh, like a lot of people say, like, can we make this movie for this amount of money? That was the indie movie thing. And it's like, well, yes. Like, and then they're like, well, this isn't what I was talking about. I was like, well, this is the movie. It just wasn't the movie you had in your head. Like, so I think,
But also, that's a key part of the process. Like sometimes it is just that first step of throwing something into the world and then having that initial feedback of like, oh no, I guess that wasn't it. Let's try
yeah,
something else.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think that's just part of it.
yeah. And I think it's part of it is understanding what each person's vision of what you described is, right? And to really be specific about it. Because I would say that like, if someone says, I want a really dynamic video with a lot of quick cuts, and like, there are times when the thing that they're trying to capture doesn't lend itself to that,
Mm.
or B, it does, but then you see it, or you can look ahead and understand that that's, considering your audience, maybe quick cuts aren't what they're looking for, like, and I think that is one of those things, I don't know, this is kind of fun that came up to me, but it's like when you see clothes and like in the store and you're like, that's me. And then you get them and you're like, well,
You try it on and
is
you're
it me?
like,
Well, no. And then you're like, well, I didn't think that was gonna be my favorite shirt. And I'm wearing it every day. Like, and
oh, that's such a good way to put it because that's really, really true. That's accurate. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know, but what are your thoughts on creativity?
I mean, creativity in itself, it's like a cloud. It's like, how do you define it? Where do you start? It's really just this constant piece. Right now in my head, I have, it was a documentary I recently watched about a show that I loved, and they were talking about, it was an animated show. So if you don't know animation, for our listeners, has it, there's a lot of pre-production that goes into it. Like you have to have every element of it scripted and storyboarded because it takes a lot of time. And so they were talking through an instance in their pre-production process where I don't think it was necessarily communication that failed or collaboration, but like they went down a path and they're like, yeah, it's not working. We gotta restart. And I think that that was a testament to their collaboration to identify like, all right, we gotta reset or we gotta try something new or this isn't working. And they brought in a lead writer on the show and she sat down and she looked at the whole series and she was like, you got to change your pilot. Like you got to change your opening scene of your pilot. And that key that she provided, it opened the whole door to the rest of the season and reframe it. Like all of us, it was the last click. And all of a sudden the storyline, kind of made sense. So it was okay. So this was Arcane, which is an incredible animation show, actually based off of League of Legends. There was a lot of anticipation that went into it, and they brought in the lead writer, and she essentially said, this is a story about two sisters. Your first opening scene is about this guy in a river. Like you got to actually position it so it's about the two sisters. And then once when they made that adjustment, and she had that space and that like invitation to kind of collaborate and to kind of add that creativity, it changed like that whole opening. It was really, really good.
Yeah, it's very interesting because you remind me of two different points. One is that when it comes to animation or like, talk about cartoons, as we say, I was talking to a guy out in Los Angeles who does these big, he does shows for like, Netflix and Cartoon Network and things like that. And
also, I'm gonna have to come at you with calling them cartoons, but we'll circle back
that's
to
what
that another day.
Cartoon Network. I'm saying, like, I was saying, it's like but I'm saying is they're the Cartoon Network is what they
Yeah,
call
yeah,
it.
okay, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
So, but
I watch a lot of anime for anyone who doesn't know, so like sometimes, yeah. Anyways,
I was trying to, what's the word? Appeal to different generations. The point is that when it comes to animation, this is what we're talking about when it comes to communication. Like it's an allegory for communication, in that when you, like, if we wanted to shoot a scene in in a kitchen, right? You could ostensibly show up to someone's house with a kitchen and have a kitchen, right? But is it the right kitchen for the right scene for the right character? And what's interesting about animation is that if someone says, "I need a kitchen," and so the person draws a kitchen, like, well, no, where's this pasta? Like, what are you talking about? You didn't ask for pasta. You asked for a kitchen. And so I think that's part of the communication process. Like, well, what do you mean by that thing that you want? And there's another thing that I think that happens where there's like people don't always realize not just the steps that are required, which is why communication is needed, but also how hard things might be. So it's like well, that person was like talking, we're going to get our most excited employees to be on camera, and what ends up happening more often than not is like there's just a wide variety of people who are either super comfortable or can become comfortable with over time, or just not suited for it at the time in that moment. They just don't really feel as comfortable as they would be otherwise with the camera rolling with and with not. And what people sit there and they see these video examples like, oh, that person is just, there's a random person just talking, like, how hard can it be? Even if they understand that there's like a warm up period, there's this idea that it's how hard can it be to talk in front of a camera, right? And
just jumping. Yeah,
yeah.
never mind.
No, that's what I'm saying is that there's a thing that happens where you take certain things for granted, right? Like that, like or it's not even that, you just haven't thought it through. Like, do uh, does the background matter? You don't notice that it matters, but it does, right? Mm-hmm. If you're doing a video if you're doing a narrative piece with like a story.
And that's where we come in as professionals.
Exactly. And so basically what it comes down to is that whatever's on screen, I talk about this all the time, whatever's on screen, you really is not an opportunity. It is a thing that is an element that is, what's the word I'm looking for? That is affecting your brand, affecting your message, affecting your story. So if you don't take every opportunity you have to fill that screen and fill that soundscape or whatever it is with specific things that lend itself to your brand, then you're missing an opportunity, even if it's got a little tiny little bit. So if you're the person who's like the most dynamic person ever, who loves your product or loves your company or
And
just, like,
represents it well.
yeah, but if they're either not suited for it or they're suited for it, and their background is like,
or they're wearing the wrong thing.
yeah, right, exactly, or they're wrong, exactly, things like that. It's like there's those little details that matter, and that's why communication is important. Is not just to have people understand and be on the same page, but it's important to make sure that every opportunity to tell your story visually or auditorially is taken. And there's just so many occasions where we see something and we just let it wash over us, which is the fun of it. Like, I don't sit there and, break down every TV show or movie I watch. I just enjoy the moment.
Yeah.
But if I sat there and looked through it, like, oh, they did this, and they did this and this. They didn't just turn on the camera and turn on the lights and go. So to me, that's a big part of communication as well, is taking the time to really break down what is needed to tell your story as effectively, as clearly, and as emotionally engaging as possible.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's the sense of like the role of communication. It really comes in with the storytelling and like presenting one's identity and making sure that you're taking the detail and the time to craft that identity and figure out what the visuals are that go into it. If it's just the type of mug the person is holding or the chair that they're sitting in, or if it's animation. And in the case of, I loved your example of the kitchen, like, what are they serving for food? Is it pasta? Is it Thai food? Is it, maybe it's just a bowl of cereal that was like haphazardly thrown together before they run out the door, microwavable, like little egg burrito, whatnot. Like identity is such a key part of storytelling and of our craft. And the only way to get a vision of that is to really continue to communicate and just keep chipping away at it with your team, and who you're working with and whoever's on camera.
Yeah, and I think that's the idea, is that I guess the bottom line is that you listen to your client's vision, however specific or abstract it is, and to really break it down into, okay, not only like, what do you mean by this, and like, what do they mean? Not just like, oh, like, I want some really rockin' music, like, well, your rock and my rock and their rock and might not be the same. So you show examples of what you're talking about.
Oh, that's key. Examples and references and things that you can point to and be like, that. I don't know exactly. Even if you don't have the language to back it up or explain what you're looking for, examples are a great way to share content and be like, I don't know what it is about it, but I like that. And then we can take a look at it and be like, okay, maybe it's the style of music. Maybe it's the way that it was cut. Maybe it was the framing or the way that it was lit. So yeah, examples are a key part that if you don't have the language, you can still communicate what your vision is. I think where we left off with that, I think that pulls everything into focus really well, of just that, like, communication is a key part of trying to represent one's identity and therefore tell your story.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, fantastic. So thank you so much for listening. And also thanks for chatting. I love these conversations, like you always know. So thank you much for tuning in, and tune in next time.
Thank you.